Hi there. In this webisode, I want to bust some myths on what it takes to motivate action. This will debunk some of our traditional communication methods that don't work hard enough for us so that we can get ready to transition to using more compelling and motivating approaches. So when faced with trying to change a behavior, we tend to start with, if they just knew, then they would do the XYZ thing we need them to do. So this assumes that a lack of awareness or information is the reason why people aren't taking action, which leads us to using the information deficit model. So this comes from that assumption that the gap between scientists and the public is a lack of information or knowledge, and therefore the remedy for that is a one-way communication approach where information flows from the experts to the public in an effort to change attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors. In essence, we are talking at our audience. Now, there are numerous studies that show this doesn't motivate action, and worse, it results in our audiences just tuning us out entirely. Now, there are some cases when this approach can work, and that's when we're preaching to the choir. For example, myself as a conservationist, as soon as I heard that plastic straws were causing a pollution problem in the ocean, I stopped using plastic straws. It was as simple as that for me. But I'm of an audience segment that is already primed, willing, and able to change my behavior in a way that benefits the environment, even if it poses an inconvenience to me. So if that's your audience, folks like me, then information can be the pathway to changing behavior. But to expand beyond that segment, we'll need much more than awareness and information. We also jump to this conclusion that people don't take action because they don't care enough, and therefore it's our job to shift their attitudes and make them care more about the issue. So this stems from an overly logical model of behavior change, like the stages of change, that states we go through a series of intentional, conscientious steps, including attitudinal shifts, before changing our behavior. So this can be applicable for big, expensive decisions like buying an electric vehicle or installing solar panels. But our daily, smaller decisions are not made in such a rational, linear way. As behavioral economists like to say, our daily decisions are made much more in the way of Homer Simpson than the way of Spock from Star Trek. This approach is also shown to be ineffective at overcoming the intention-action gap, sometimes referred to as the awareness-action gap. We regularly know the things that are good for us are the things that we should be doing and feel certain ways about them, including caring about them, but that alone is not enough to catalyze most people to follow through on that action, let alone make full-on behavior changes. It requires much more motivation to make it worth their effort and overcome this gap. Sometimes we assume that people need to know how bad or dire the situation is in order to act. This leads us to using things like fear, scare tactics, and doom and gloom as a means of motivating people. Now, some members of our audience will see through us and see what we're trying to do, and as a result, will be super skeptical of our messages and even try to poke holes at the severity of what we're saying. Other members of our audience, in fact, most of them, will feel that fear and doom, and as a result, will bury their heads in the sand. Neither of these audience segments will get up and take action as a result. Lastly, we assume that people just need the proper resources and then behaviors will change as a result of that. While having the necessary infrastructure in place is critical for achieving behavior change, it won't do it alone. We've seen this before with communities not using mosquito nets in the proper way or not recycling even though the infrastructure is there. And that's because the motivation to match the infrastructure was not in place beforehand. This doesn't mean we can't still motivate people to jump up and do things, but we do need to leverage different communication strategies that are based on behavioral insights that will truly move people to do something, take action, and change their behaviors. I hope you'll visit my website at brooktully.com to learn even more about how we can motivate audiences to take action and start our own conservation movements. Thank you.